Settlers League finally introduced gold to Path of Exile, and it's a mechanic that I think is working really well thus far. The biggest thing that people have noticed during the first week of the league is just how much gold they need to get their town upgraded and functioning. You need a lot of gold, and that means you need to farm it quickly and consistently. Hi, it's Lerald, and in this video, I'm going to talk about how gold works in patch 3.25 and several efficient ways to farm a lot of it. So I'm just going to get right into it, but first don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, so why do we want gold? Gold translates directly into currency. It is the main thing you need to fuel the entire league mechanic, but just to boil it down to the very simplest mechanical components, you can grow food in Kingsmarch at the farm, and the only thing that you really need to do that is gold to pay your workers and to upgrade the farm. You can then export that food to other ports using the shipyard, which again, you fuel with gold, and you get back raw currency. Now there's more complexity to the town than that, obviously, and we have covered the whole town in a lot more detail in a prior video, but those are the basics. You want gold to farm, to make chaos and divines, and hey, mirrors, why not? Let's dream big. You also need gold to interact with the currency exchange over at Faustus, which definitely isn't an auction house. Now a bit on how gold works. From a Reddit post earlier today, gold replaces some random loot drops when it spawns. This is actually a good thing. Gold is specifically replacing gear drops. This is like critical. It's replacing garbage loot that would have been culled by your loot filter, but still needed to be generated and handled by the server. It's not replacing currency. Now, in before a tide of comments saying that actually I lost a stack of mirrors and all I got was a couple of gold, but genuinely, it's not replacing currency. It's replacing garbage gear that you would have never seen. To be honest, I feel that the game has been performing a little bit better for me this league than it has in the last couple, especially in Necropolis League. Now that could be the placebo effect, it could be misattributing problems that were caused by the Lantern of Aramor in Necropolis or something, or you know, maybe I'm right, but either way it does feel a little bit better to me than it did. Also, even though GGG has not openly said this, I think that this league is the manifestation of Loot 2.0 that they've been working on for years. Gold replaces a lot of garbage drops, life mod values have all been substantially increased, basic defenses on gear like armor and evasion are much more valuable than they were in the past, and the league mechanic generates a lot of well-rolled items like this body armor that I'm wearing right now with T2 life, T3 increased armor, and T1 flat armor. All of that was just natively on this piece of gear. Probably going to use Eldritch currency to reroll the suffixes, but you know, I just crafted it up as it is right now, and honestly, that's a pretty great starting point to get from a league mechanic. So because gold replaces drops, the most effective way to get gold is to get lots of drops. So how do we do that? We kill lots of dudes, especially rares and uniques. Alright, so let's first start out by talking about quantity and map modifiers. Map modifiers increase the quantity of a map, they also increase the pack size. As you can see from this magic map, 32 quant, 12 pack size, 2 mods on it, pretty simple. This is a rare map, it's got 6 mods, 75 quant, 49 or 29 pack size. And then this one is chiseled up, so it has 20 quality, so it has more quant, 97 quant, 29 pack size. Pretty basic stuff, you know, building blocks, basic operating procedure of Path of Exile. Now, the Atlas passive tree is really the only other way that you can get quant now that quantity has been removed from gear, and thankfully it wasn't replaced with gold find. So the standard kind of juicing tree is going to contain these basic nodes. It's going to contain the roundy round circles here. You get 12 1-point nodes that give quantity in this circle, and then 3 in here that give quantity and rarity for a combined total of 15 quantity and 15 rarity. Then you're able to get these, believe it is 19 small passive nodes that give 2% map mod effect, 5 here, 5 up top, and then 5 over here. This is generally referred to as the top hat. And then there are these 2 little arms as well that give 2% map mod effect also, so 19 points there. So 38 map mod effect from that. And then there are 3 little wheels that give map mod effect as well. This little wheel here that concludes with kind of a bad passive here, if I'm being honest, but I just like to take it because it throws a little bit of extra dudes into your maps. It's okay. This one that concludes here with 3% map mod effect per 5% map quality. So assuming you're normally, as you would, always rolling your maps up to 20% quality, that's 12% map mod effect. That's very good. And then all of these small ones are 3%, whereas all of these ones are 2. So, you know, you're getting a lot from this, 12% here and then 9% here, 21 just from this wheel. 9 from this wheel, and then a little bit of extra guys. And then this one giving you 3% per and 2% per explicit modifier. So on a 4 mod map, that's 8%. It's okay. On a 8 mod map, that's 16%. That's quite a lot. So ideally, if you really want to juice it up as hard as you can, you would be running corrupted 8 mod maps and doing everything you can to juice that by getting all the map mod effect you possibly can in the tree, getting all of the quantity you possibly can in your Atlas passive tree. If you're doing chiseled 4 or 6 mod rare maps that you've just rolled up, that's still pretty good. That still works, especially at this point in the league. Now, pack size is also pretty important. There's really not anything else we can do to increase pack size for the most part, other than just getting our map mod effect up, but there are a couple of little things we can do, and that is taking some of these nodes here, that if we're doing red altars, we can increase our Searing Exarch pack size, and that's true of these small passives above the top here. And then the same would be applicable if you're doing blue altars instead. You would take these nodes. You don't have to, they're just a nice little bit of filler you can throw in to get up to 20% increased pack size. And then these down here are also potentially worth taking for a total of 40% increased pack size, which does actually add up to a lot of extra guys, a lot of extra stuff dropping, a lot of gold. So now let's talk about the best league mechanic. I think most league mechanic monsters tend to drop league mechanic items, like Legion monsters dropping Legion splinters, Harbingers dropping Harbinger currency shards. This means that they don't drop as much regular equipable gear like weapons and armor, and that means they don't give as much gold. There are 2 mechanics that really stand above the rest, in my opinion, for giving lots of armor items, lots of gear, and thus giving a lot of gold, and those would be Blight and Strongboxes. Now, Blight generates massive amounts of rare items, so it's decent at generating gold if you are willing and able to juice it up and able to handle it once it is juiced. I have a couple of Blight Scarabs to show off here. There are some new Blight Scarabs in this league, and these 2 are those 2. This one makes it so that instead of Blight encounters having a chest at the end of each lane, it's just one giant chest by the Blight device, or by the pump, whatever. It makes the Blight take a lot longer. As you can see here, it says it spawns many more waves of enemies. They are larger and more rewarding the more enemies you slay. So this makes the Blights last a lot longer. It also makes them more rewarding. And then the second one, Blight Scarab of Invigoration, makes it so that empowering towers will empower the monsters, giving them more reward, but also making them more dangerous. This kind of lines up with the same way that you would still want to do a Blight, where you're building empowering towers and then the stun towers in the Blight area, using that to lock down all the enemies and then kill them off with all of the other towers. So another big upside to Blight is that it takes place all in one location, so you don't have to play a fast build in order to do it pretty efficiently, and that's really good. The downside of Blight is that it sucks as melee. It's a damn war crime. Proximity shields are so awful. There is so much melee damage happening in Blights that they are really, really tough to do as melee that doesn't have a ton of range. Now, Toxic Rain and Caustic Arrow solve this, but unfortunately I'm not playing that right now. They also solve the proximity shields, but again, not playing that right now, so it definitely feels a lot weaker, this particular build, Earth Shatter Berserker, than Toxic Rain and Caustic Arrow. Now, just doing Blight on its own without any of this juice is okay. You might get 5 to 10,000 gold from a Blight. Not bad, but not amazing. The real reason that Blight is really good right now is this new notable that replaces the old terrible one that would give you the enchant on your maps, like that sometimes they would contain Blights. Terrible. This new notable is really good. Templar Ingenuity. It makes it so that Blight towers in your maps can be salvaged after a Blight encounter. Higher tier towers grant better salvaged rewards. Salvaged rewards are improved for each different tower type built during the encounter. So the way that you want to really maximize your value in this is to build all 6 types of towers, and before the end of the Blight, level at least one of each tower up to rank 4, but ideally all of them. Build all of the different types of towers you possibly can and level them all to rank 4. By doing that, your towers will be disassembled into rewards, which pretty much aren't really all that worthwhile for the most part, but they do convert into gold, and they can convert into a lot of gold. This is very lucrative, so you really do want to rank for all of your Blight towers before the event has concluded, and you do want to try to get a wide variety of Blight towers, which is traditionally not how Blight is played. All told, I've done a handful of juice Blight maps and gotten 15 to 20,000 juice or gold rather just from blights, in which I rank forward all my towers and try to diversify, and then like another 10 to 15,000 gold from the rest of the map. So we're talking 30, 40,000 gold in a map that I do correctly and do pretty well. That's pretty good. For blights where I just built towers like normal, kind of played it the traditional way, maybe more like 5,000 gold, much less impressive. Honestly, not that great. So if you do it right, you're somewhere in the range of I think like 20 to 40,000 gold per map, which is, you know, it's a bit of a wide range, but I mean, it's pretty good. The only real problem with this is that it comes with all the downsides of blight, like taking a long time, proximity shields, and boiling your graphics card. Strongboxes are the other top tier strategy, and they are the one that I prefer more. Strongboxes spawn tons of enemies, but they are regular map enemies, so they drop lots of items, and that means lots of gold. I've been farming them with red altars for lots of random useful currency from minion altar bonuses, and blue altars will technically spawn more often. They will appear more frequently in your maps than red altars, so you will get more enemies and more bonuses from them. And they're also just a lot better for quant and rarity juicing, so they will provide more gold if you're able to offset the player downsides and take those quant and rarity bonuses from Eater of Worlds altars. But with that being said, red altars at this point in the league are usually more rewarding in terms of raw currency. They give you chaos, straight up. They also give you like chisels and regret orbs and just a lot of good stuff like that. So I think you're still fine going red instead of blue right now. It will sacrifice some gold per hour, but it will generate some chaos per hour, and I think it generates more than you're losing. Now, Strongboxes, I would say I've been averaging about 15 to 25,000 gold per map with Strongboxes, doing mainly Mesa map. This is less gold than I was getting out of Blight, but the maps are several minutes faster each and way less painful. I'm also able to run Strongboxes on any map that I like, whereas Blight, you're not totally pigeonholed into doing Toxic Sewer, but it's better if you're in Toxic Sewer than pretty much any other map, and that means you don't really have as much in the way of options. Ultimately, I think Strongboxes get the silver medal, but it's still really good by comparison with most other mechanics. It's a close second and a very far from third kind of silver medal, in my experience. All right, now let's talk about the best map to run. So, what is the best map for farming gold? Tier 17s. It's not even close. You can get 50 to 75,000 gold per map in tier 17s. Totally doable. The problem is, they're tier 17s. They're still rough. They did get nerfed in this league. The monsters are much less dangerous and much less tanky. The problem is, the mods are just as evil as they were before. They're demonic, and they were not really nerfed in a way that is satisfactory to me. So you get more gold per map, but they are much slower to full clear. Ultimately, my takeaway is, do them if you can handle it, don't worry if you can't. As for tier 16s, what you're looking for are maps with high mob density, good layout, boss rushable, and ideally a good div card. For Blight, that's pretty much just Toxic Sewer. You're just locked into Toxic Sewer. I like that place, but you are locked in there. It is your cell. As for Strongboxes, you have some other options. Mesa is my preferred location, but Underground Sea can also be really good. Dunes is a good map layout, but you will want to scry div cards onto it that are better once you're able to. And before getting to tier 16 maps, I really think you should just keep progressing your Atlas. I think that's all you should do. Just continue progressing your Atlas and don't worry about what map really to do until you have gotten you've gotten into tier 16s and you're consistently like running tier 16s for a while. That is when I would start to worry about what map to focus on farming. I would recommend Maps of Exile if you do want to play around with and think about what map you're wanting to run. It's a really good website. I will put it in the description, and I'll just kind of show off a little bit of how it works. There are some things that you can toggle on here, like whether a map is boss rushable. This is preferable for altar strategies where you're really looking to farm either a player modifier for blue altars or a minion modifier for red altars. Being able to immediately zip to the boss very quickly, kill it off, and always have whatever it is, the type of altar modifier that you're looking for, always be in there every single time. That is ideal. So Jungle Valley is also another map that just doesn't have the boss spawn, so that kind of takes care of that as well. It functionally is boss rushable, even though it literally isn't, and the boss is actually quite slow. Now, I wouldn't necessarily agree with some of the sort of tags that they have here of Underground Sea being boss rushable. I mean, I guess technically, but it's a bit of a trek. The same I would say for Toxic Sewer. It takes a bit of a while to get to the boss, so I wouldn't really call Toxic Sewer a boss rushable map. But Mesa is very easy to boss rush. Dunes is really not that difficult to boss rush. Cemetery can be pretty easy to boss rush. So these are all decent maps. You can change your layout weight. You know, the layout is to some degree a matter of opinion, but you know, you can change your layout weight. Maybe you don't care that the layout sucks. I don't know why you would not care, but you can change that. And so now it'll recommend maps that have terrible layouts if you want to have a bad time. Density is good. Density really just means the amount of regular mobs that are in the map. This is why Underground Sea is so good. It is insanely dense. If you are playing a build that's not very great at doing the boss, maybe you want to make sure that the boss is nice and easy. So you could set the boss weight to like 20, and then it'll recommend a map that has a relatively easy boss like Toxic Sewer. If you don't care about the div cards at all, then again, you can set that card weight to low, and then again, Toxic Sewer, Dunes, Cemetery, these all become good maps now because previously they were all good maps, and Dunes and Cemetery particularly had really good div cards available in them, but those have been changed this league. Now they kind of suck, so unless you have scried your way to having good div cards on those maps, they're going to be kind of bad. They're going to be lower weighted in this Maps of Exile listing unless you lower your card weight. All right, so I've mentioned the two league mechanics that I think kind of stand out above the rest, but now I want to mention some budget alternatives. And one of those would be Rogue Exiles. I think Rogue Exiles are really good. I've kind of stacked those together with Maven boss rotations. I would call it boss rushing, but honestly, I'm kind of full clearing the map, so it's not really rushing. It's more full rotas, but either way, combining Anarchy with Maven has been really successful. The Rogue Exiles, because they are unique monsters, they do drop a lot of stuff. They do drop a lot of gold. And you can really boost that by throwing on some Titanic Scarabs, especially this one, Titanic Scarab of Treasures. Will just add 2 rewards to all the Rogue Exiles. It will give them 30% increased toughness, so they will be harder to kill, but this can be really good. It also will work with unique monsters that are in the maps. So Glacier map really stands out as being really good because there are like 6 mini bosses that spawn before the big boss, and those all get modified by this and also this Scarab. It's also not bad on City Square, just any map that has several bosses, being able to throw the Titanic Scarab of Treasures or the regular Titanic Scarab onto them and just get a bunch more reward from those bosses, a bunch more gear that then converts into gold. It can be pretty good. As I said, I have run a bunch of Guardian maps as well. I really like Guardian maps. They have a lot of extra monsters, and so they drop tons of extra gear. I find this to be especially true for Conqueror maps. But also, I do think I've gotten surprisingly good gold from Synthesis maps, but the drops from Synthesis map bosses are not great. You can get Cortex, which is a big pop of currency, big pop of chaos all at once if you're willing to sell them off. Or, I mean, if you need to farm Cortex for yourself, that could also be good. But other than that, most of the items from Synthesis maps are not that valuable. And then obviously, since you are doing Guardian maps, you might as well have Maven witness them to get even more currency value, and you probably want to set up your Atlas passive tree so that you have all of the Maven witnessing stuff in play. Destructive Play, Conquered Conquerors, Remnants of the Past, Chittering Champions, all the stuff that ties drops onto a final map boss. You then are killing a bunch of map bosses and getting credit for all of that, and potentially getting a bunch of maps that you can then sell off to other people, or fuel your own continued Guardian map running. Now, I have a couple of other recommendations as well, and those would be White Scarabs. And White Scarabs isn't really the right way to put it. I think they call them miscellaneous scarabs, but I don't know, just sort of rando scarabs that do add a lot of monsters into your maps. And the first of those would be Scarab of Adversaries. It adds 4 packs with mirrored rare monsters, which are 2 rares per pack, so that's 8 rares per map. I did play around with this, and also with Influencing Scarab of Hordes, which just gives you 40% increased pack size on all the influence packs in your maps. These are actually pretty good, especially in conjunction with, say, like blue altar farming or red altar farming. I think really is better since you're going for minion mods anyway. You can get 40% increased pack size on all the red mobs, along with the 40% increase from the tree, and then the pack size from the map mods, and then juicing all the map mod effect as well. You really do get a lot of guys. So just combining these two, adding 8 rare packs, or really 4 packs, but 8 rares, and then adding a lot of extra pack size onto the influence mobs, It adds a lot. It really does make it so that there are a lot more guys and just a lot more juice dropping, or gold dropping from all of them. You can also add in Scarab of Monstrous Lineage for 40% increased magic pack size. This will also add a fair amount of gold. And then I have played around with using Influencing Scarab of the Elder on some maps, especially in conjunction with the Titanic Scarab of Treasures. This just adds like a fair amount of dudes into the map. Specifically, it adds the big black blob portals, and those are unique monsters. And then the Titanic Scarab of Treasures will actually add rewards onto them, and they will drop a fair amount of gold. This is a very low cost approach. Like, these things are totally worthless, and all the Elder stuff is mostly worthless and kind of annoying, but it can add a little bit of extra gold. Maybe one of the more fun ones that was actually kind of surprisingly good was Domination. I have used Shrines as well. Shrines add several packs of mobs each, and by adding in these Domination Scarabs, I literally just use one of each. Domination Scarab regular style, the Apparitions, which give you these kind of weird new buffs where you're followed around by a Conqueror, and so some of your drops will turn into Conqueror drops. Kind of cool. You do have to dodge Conqueror abilities throughout the process though. And then the Evolving Shrine, which will cause enemies that you kill to like revive as a new monster. So that was something kind of fun to play around with. I just did a handful of maps where I did these all in conjunction, the 40% pack size and the Adversary Scarab, along with one of each of the Domination Scarabs. And I was doing those in Underground Sea, and I think I was making around 15 to 20,000 gold. I think like right around 17,000 gold per map. So the gold's actually pretty good. But the actual currency returns were worse than just doing ambush, just doing Strongboxes, which makes sense. This was a lot cheaper strategy. It would make sense that it's not going to be as lucrative, but it was kind of fun and quick and easy breezy, good way to make a fair amount of gold. Definitely could farm a couple 100,000 gold per hour doing a strategy with relatively low investment in terms of chaos on the Scarabs. Now there are a couple of other methods that give you gold that I just want to kind of give mention to before we wrap up here. There's Admiral what's-his-name, I don't remember the name, but the guy who captures your boats. He drops around 50,000 gold and a couple of runes, so you always have an incentive to keep sending out ships and fishing for procs of the pirate captain fight, and then go actually kill him instead of paying off the ransom. I don't know why you would do that. And then there's also mining. At max rank, marking ore in your maps will grant you an equal amount of gold. This is like roughly 1,000 gold per map. It's not a ton, but it's a decent bonus. It maybe gives you an incentive to just kind of very quickly slam through maps, do something like the Domination Scarab strategy where you're just breezing through maps every 2 minutes, getting an extra 1,000 gold from every map from mining, and then also getting a bunch of ore for your boys to mine. You know, not the worst strategy I could come up with. All right, so that's gold farming. I never thought that there would be a point where I would talk about gold farming in Path of Exile, but I actually think it's pretty cool. I think it has worked out really well. I've really been enjoying thinking about this other separate currency that I'm trying to balance against farming the regular tradable currencies like Chaos and Divines. And it's definitely something fun and new and different, and I like it. I think it's been really good for the game, and I kind of hope that it sticks around after this league has ended. All right, I think that pretty much covers it. Thanks for watching, and go farm a mountain of gold. Bye.